The stool that was supposedly wedged against the door, and Sergeant Cameron had told me that personally also, when you read the Seattle police reports, you notice that the first officer on the scene saw that stool sitting in front of two unlocked French doors that just led out to the balcony that looked over the driveway. So that's no indication of anybody being barricaded inside. The only other thing that comes close to being barricaded inside was the door was locked to the greenhouse from the inside. But it was a push and twist door lock just like you have in a bathroom. So anybody could kill Kurt Cobain, walk out that door, push and twist the door lock, and pull it shut when they walk out of the room, and the door's locked. So there's absolutely no evidence that he was barricaded in that house or in the greenhouse, but yet for a month or two before the police reports were ever made public, that's the story that was circulated everywhere on TV and in the media and every article and everything.
I remember.
So, I mean, if that would have been true, I would have believed it was suicide too. Because, how could somebody else be in there if he was barricaded in there and had a stool wedged against the door? But the fact is, the Seattle police report differently, and they've never bothered to clear that up, of course. But the reports are public; they're public record, and people can read that for themselves. Now, the most obvious and the hardest piece of evidence here is the medical evidence, the heroin overdose. It's 3 times a lethal dose of heroin. It was 1.52 milligrams per liter of heroin or morphine, because heroin becomes morphine once it's injected into the body. And research indicates that's 3 times a lethal overdose, even for a hardcore heroin addict. Now, when the medical authorities up there in Seattle and anybody else that wants to argue this issue on the other side and say, well, that doesn't really prove anything, it depends on his tolerance level and all that, that's kind of the story that you hear from the other side. But all I've done for the last 15 years, and believe me, I did it right from the beginning, I said, just show me one other case, one similar case where there's that kind of a heroin blood level and there's any evidence that a person would have had time to pick up a shotgun and put it in their mouth and pull the trigger. Yeah. And I give an example even. A bunch of guys sitting around watching a football game on TV, and one guy gets up and he goes into the bathroom. He comes back out a few minutes later and he sits down on the couch and he keels over dead. That's a typical overdose story. There's hundreds of thousands of cases like that have happened in the United States and around the world over the last 20 or 30 years, with eyewitnesses that would have seen it and would have been in the police report. So there's plenty of documentation if it's there. And what I've said is, if you show me a case like that, then you've proven to me that Kurt had plenty of time to pick up the shotgun and shoot himself. Because if someone can walk out of a bathroom into a living room and sit down on a couch before keeling over dead, then obviously he would have had time to shoot himself up with heroin and then, put the shotgun in his mouth. But nobody, not one person, has ever come up with a single case. Not only that, but in 15 years, I've gotten emails, letters, and had some phone calls with some of these people from doctors, from coroners, from nurses, from paramedics, from police officers, from detectives, attorneys, a couple of district attorneys. One even is a law professor. One of the emails I got was a law professor who sits as a judge pro tem in a superior court. And every one of these people have been supportive of the work that I've done. I have never gotten a letter from one of these professions ever that disagreed with this heroin blood level evidence that I'm talking about. So not only have they not provided a documented case with a similar heroin level and proof that somebody is capable of doing this, I've never even gotten a letter from a professional person that has dealt with this type of thing that disagrees with me. Not once in 15 years.
If we get calls from law enforcement or you're listening and you have an opinion, what you're listening to as far as evidence, is it convincing? 866-482-1011 or go to twitter.com. We're laying the groundwork, and when we come back, this is amazing to me, because with all this evidence and a whole lot more he didn't even get to yet, because he was from Beverly Hills and the Seattle Police Department didn't want some outside investigator, things kind of changed. And we're going to have to find out why didn't they want to look at your evidence. We'll talk about that. It's good to have you back. If you're just getting in your car and wondering what we're talking about, this is Tom Grant. He was the first investigator to get on the scene when Courtney Love called him, hired him to find the missing Kurt Cobain. What he started to see pointed towards Courtney, and he continues to mount evidence, and it's just very compelling stuff. We're going to continue with that evidence and find out what happened, why the Seattle police didn't want to look at it. Here's another clip. This was at the stage where it was breaking nationally, and as I would have him on the show and others would have him on the show, lawyers were coming down for Courtney Love. Here's a little clip from the documentary you can watch free on YouTube right now, as a matter of fact.
Well, before you get into your point, though, hold on, Raymond.
Okay.
We enforced
I knew it.
100% against our will to read this to you.
Right.
Courtney Love's representatives objected to the contents of yesterday's show. Out of deference to Miss Love, we are not going to be following up today on any subjects related to Miss Love the way we might usually do so. We may have something further to say in the future. Thanks for listening and understanding. That's basically the sum of what we are being allowed to say on the air today.
Are trying to prevent you from going on big radio shows to expose this. It's almost like some kind of a cover-up going on. And I know from some of my coworkers in the business, they've had lawyers try to prevent you from doing the show.
So it was about 15 minutes. I've got my notes on how long it was in the other room, but of yelling at me, saying, you know, like basically saying, you're not worried about being sued? Well, I don't think so. It's cool. I've never been yelled at by lawyers bi-coastally before. A lawyer in L.A., a lawyer in New York. This coast to coast. Give me a break. Don't tell your listeners this stuff. Oh, why? Well, because the detective might get in trouble. You know, we're just concerned about him. He could be arrested. Right.
Very interesting. This is from that documentary that Tom Grant is putting together. He's not selling it. It's there, and the website, CobainCase.com. But go to YouTube. We'll have on my website, ifitrocks.com, and also, of course, FMTalk1011.com in the Allan Handelman section. We'll have it up. Lee's going to put it up there tonight, so hopefully it'll be up there by tonight, if not by Monday. And you can do a search for Tom Grant. So, as we go back, for people just getting in the cars, that was at a time period where the lawyers were winning and they stopped interviewing you, basically, for a period.
Yeah. And believe me, I understand the position of, people that own radio stations and television stations. They have a lot at stake, and there's a lot of stories out there. Why risk, getting involved in something that might result in a lawsuit? And their attorneys naturally would tell them, just like any good attorney would, don't touch this, just move on to something else. Why take a chance of having to spend a lot of money in defending ourselves and all that? So that's why it happened. But then, like I said, when you kept having me on over and over again, and people were watching, I know they were watching, and you know they were watching, because you would tell me people that you were talking to also. But I was also getting calls from people. I got calls from somebody at Rolling Stone that actually helped me edit part of my website, even though officially Rolling Stone disagreed with me officially. They put on their website a link on a story to Nirvana, and you click on that link where it says the word Nirvana, and it went directly to my website at CobainCase.com. Right. And I got a call from somebody at MTV, and even though MTV officially was disagreeing with my with what I was saying, I got a call from a producer there that said, you've got a lot more support here than what you realize, So there was a lot going on behind the scenes, but they were watching, and they were seeing that, wow, this guy keeps going on the radio, and nothing's happening. They make all these threats to sue, but they're not following through. Why aren't they following through? And so that gradually opened the doors for other things to start happening. And I don't know where we would be today if it wasn't for those shows that you kept putting me on. You were the only one that just kept having me back over and over again.
I appreciate that, and I just, like I said, other shows